Well, that is just some bullshit. Oh, hello. Well, you've probably been wondering where I've been, huh? Well, let me answer your question with another question. You, seen any movies lately? That's right! I've spent the entire year playing Fortnite and watching movies. No machinery for this fella. I've actually watched a whopping total of 145 movies this year. Mostly in the cinema, some at home, and even some on VHS, so I think I'm more than qualified to rate these films. Who needs a film degree when you can just watch over 100 films instead? Education's a waste of time anyway. So in this video, I will be covering the films that I've watched this year, in this specific order: most impactful, biggest guilty pleasure, most disappointing, and the worst movie of the year. And then it'll be your standard top 5 with some honourable mentions at the end. Also, when I introduce a film, I'll be using a metric called Harry's rating, alongside ratings from Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and Letterboxd. Now, Harry's rating is pretty similar to how Rotten Tomatoes handles their rating, but here's the rating legend just so you know where I stand with all of these films that I rate. So, let's get started with our first film, shall we? I think this film is actually really great. Obviously nothing revolutionary, but not nearly as bad as I would expect it to be, and in some parts better than other video game films, especially the Super Mario movie. Now, obviously I wanted to see this be an animated movie similar to the Minecraft game trailers, but what we got in the end was actually pretty good. Every character seemed to bounce off each other so well. It felt like everyone had genuine fun during the production of this film, and that, in my opinion, is what makes a piece of media great. If all of the main cast feel like they're friends off camera. To use a pretty obvious example, that's why the show Friends worked so well. Anyway, of course the film's plot is nothing to write home about. It's just a basic kids film in that regard, but the action scenes were fun, especially the scene where Steve first introduces himself and beats the hell out of some zombies. The scenes in between weren't boring, although everything at the start was a little bit slow. And, of course, this didn't affect my personal rating of the film, but not only was the cinema-going experience the most electric I've seen since Minions Rise of Gru, but also this film kind of fixed me. Story time! It was a chill Wednesday morning, and I just got broken up with. Yep, this story starts with a 4-month relationship going down the tubes, and I was lying in bed, laying in a puddle of tears, just scrolling through my phone, either scrolling through Instagram, YouTube, or whatever else kept me occupied. But I decided to check my local cinema's website, and I noticed that there was a screening for the Minecraft movie at 14:45, and it was around 14:10 at the time, and it was about a 20-minute walk to the cinema, so there was no way I was going to make it in time, especially in the state that I was in. A few minutes later, my subconsciousness gave me a slightly vague but also threatening message, which was basically, if you don't go see this exact screening of the Minecraft movie, you will never be happy ever again. And suddenly, I felt a massive shot of adrenaline course through my veins. I had to go see this exact screening. So I got dressed and ran out of the door as fast as I could. And fortunately, I got to the cinema in time, and with 5 minutes to spare, no less. And you know what the strangest part is? My subconsciousness was right. After the film ended, I immediately felt so much better. So, the lesson here is, if you want to feel better about your ex, or whatever is troubling you, go to your local cinema and watch an albeit good but ultimately subpar children's film with Jack Black in it. Speaking of subpar children's films, I really wanted to like this film. Not because everybody else liked it, but because it seemed like a genuinely interesting concept. And it is, to an extent, but unfortunately it falls flat on its face a lot of the time. Now, I do acknowledge that the demographic of this film is K-pop fans in their early teens or older. Not big hairy British blokes in their early 20s who listen to Japanese jazz and yacht rock like myself. But I think any film can be criticised by anyone of any gender or age as long as their criticisms are actually justified and not like, oh, this film is K-pop, so I hate it. Like, please don't pretend you weren't listening to Gangnam Style when it first came out. Everybody was, shut up. But I'm getting off track. The first reason as to why this film was kind of disappointing was the characters weren't captivating enough for me to like them. The main three girls are the best examples. Zoe's only personality is being the happy, cocky one. Mira's only personality is being hot-tempered, and Rumi is the leader type with a little bit of lore to make her seem interesting. That lore being, she's half demon, which she can't reveal to her friends because obviously they're the demon hunters. Which makes the film feel flat in my opinion. If the main three characters barely have a reason to care about them, why should I bother watching? The best parts of this film are directly tied to the two characters who have any lore whatsoever, Jinu and Rumi, whose pasts and struggles are explained in depth, which makes the times that they actually talk to each other seem meaningful, although I did not care less for the hammed-in sexual tension between them that went absolutely nowhere. Also, for a movie based on K-pop, the songs are really just okay. Not bad per se, but nothing great either. The two best songs in the film are the ones at the end, Your Idol and What It Sounds Like, which again ties back into my opinion being that the only good parts of this film are the ones that are tied into the most meaningful characters. But in my opinion, the most egregiously awful part of this film is when Jinu, for some reason, sends out demon clones of Zoe and Mira to reveal Rumi's demon stripes on stage, in front of thousands of people, which they succeed in doing. And Rumi is now shown to be a demon in front of everyone, including the real Zoe and Mira. And when Rumi goes to the real Zoe and Mira who were backstage for help, Zoe and Mira threaten to kill her! Like, what? Rumi clearly isn't a threat to these people because, you know, they live together, and if Rumi was gonna hurt them, she would have done that already. So in my opinion, this scene just shows that Zoe and Mira just never considered her to be a friend in the first place, which makes the next scene all the more confusing. During What It Sounds Like, Zoe and Mira are shown to be friends with Rumi again, out of nowhere, with no explanation as to why. They're just friends again, that's it. Which leads me to my next point, this film being quite undercooked. After the film's massive success, Sony, or Netflix, whoever owns it, announced that a prequel is coming and it's ready for release shortly, which hasn't been released yet, but that's besides the point. Because I believe if whatever is in that prequel film was actually spliced into the first film, the full film would have been a lot better than it actually was, because at the end of the film, there was just so many loose ends and underdeveloped characters that the film just suffered because of it. So, in conclusion, K-pop Demon Hunters deserved better. The film was underdeveloped, rushed out, and at the end of the day, was nothing more than just an egregiously disappointing K-pop cash grab made for kids and people with no ability to decipher the difference between a good or bad film. So, to clarify, in this section I originally discussed Dogman by DreamWorks, which I rated 25%, and Slade in Flame, which I rated 10%. But during the production of this video, I went to see a film that is, honest to God, rivals my least favourite films, Boy and the Heron and Your Monster, in utter shallowness and stupidity. This film is apparently about loneliness and how that affects our main character, Noel, who was so unimportant to the film despite being the main character that I only remember his name because it was quite literally spelled out in the middle of the film. Now, this film reminds me of that one friend who tells a story and just won't get to the point because this entire film is filled with pointless scenes that show or do nothing for the rest of the film. And by the time it actually seems to have an interesting plot point, it's late into Act 3 and the film ends. So basically, we just sat through an hour of absolutely boring nothingness, with a slight gleam of anything interesting, only when the film is actually winding down. But by the time you actually get to the interesting part of the film, you've been so bored off your head for the past 40 minutes that you're given no reason to actually care what happens to Noel or the drunk girl he helps. So why should I care about Noel and his struggles when you have given me nothing to care about him for? Another reason why this film is so bad is the cinematography. Oh my god, whoever filmed this needs to be court mandated to never pick up a camera ever again, because this is genuinely some of the worst cinematography I've seen in a film since September 5th, a film about the 1972 Munich massacre. But at least that film has an excuse of being in a cramped studio building for basically the entire film. But Christmas again takes place mostly outside, in New York. So what's the point of having the camera so zoomed in? From what I've heard, it's apparently a technique to immerse the viewer in your film, but personally, I think that's a load of hogshit, and a crutch for crappy directors who don't know how to actually make a good film properly. If you make a good film with an interesting idea, viewers will automatically be immersed in your world. You don't need to zoom into the characters' faces so hard that you can see each individual whisker on their faces. It just makes your film look claustrophobic and overall is one of the biggest ruiners of a film's quality. Fortunately for the continued sanity of the human race, the director, Charles Pokel, hasn't made a single live-action film since. His only 2 other films since have been documentaries, so never again must I sit through an awful slog of his ever again. Christmas, again, is a pointless 1-hour slogfest filled with nothing characters, a nothing environment. Well, at least I think the environment was nothing anyway. I could barely see it because the camera was so zoomed in for the entire film. And features a plot that only has some semblance of being a good idea late into the 3rd act. And to all of the film critics who thought this was a cozy little Christmas romp through charming little New York, and them unironically rating it 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, you are the reason the dumpster fire of Boy and the Heron got so many awards despite being completely horseshit, and you should lose your jobs and get fucked! Sorry, that got a little bit heated, but that film really did suck. But to be fair, when a film director's only charm is filming a live-action film in a real-life location, as said by his Wikipedia page, you kinda really need to make your case known as to why his film sucked humongous ass. Well, now that those films are out of the way, I can finally discuss my personal top 5 films that I've seen this year. Actually, slight change of plans. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to split this video into 2 parts. If part 2 is already out, you'll be seeing a little annotation on the top right of the screen. But if not, you won't have to wait too long. Part 2 is releasing New Year's Eve 2025, so not long to wait at all. I hope you're enjoying this series so far, I really do enjoy making it. But before I go, I have a little bit of a Christmas present for you all. So, it's probably known that most of the time, especially in my latest machinimas, I name people and locations after songs and artists I like. For example, Chloe Khan is named after Chaka Khan, Irene is named after Irene Cara, and Kirby's dad, Michael Meme, is named after Michael Bublé. So I would like to introduce a playlist called The Music That Inspired the Meme, showing all of the music that certain characters and locations are named after, or hell, even music that inspired certain videos to be made. And in the playlist's description, there's a Google Docs link that shows how the music is referenced in Kirby the Meme Man. This is something I've wanted to do for a while, but I haven't ever had the chance to introduce it in a video, so I thought I'd best do it now. Also, if you want to wear the same hat I'm wearing right now, the Gary's Mod Workshop link for the hat is in the description. Anyway, have a great Christmas, and I hope you all get lots of gifts and... oh shit! Kirby Claus, that's what I call Kirby in his Santa outfit by the way, just gave me a gift. I wonder what he gave me. Oh boy, it's a bomb!